series of cartoon controversies hit the headlines. In the debates that followed, cartoonists across the country made one single point: don't damn a cartoon without understanding it or its context. As part of our India at 65 series, we take a look at the nation through the tradition of political cartooning. In no way is this a complete list of all political cartoonists, just a glimpse into their world. India is 1 year old. It's 1948 and Keshava Shankara Pillai has just launched Shankar's Weekly, based on the British Punch, a magazine of humour and satire. In the first issue, Shankar writes in his editorial, "We should not become a nation of bores. There is no policy behind this effort except the policy to make people laugh. If there is any other, it is to laugh with a purpose, to expose the pompous part of our ridiculous selves." In every issue, eager audiences would wait to see who would make it as the Man of the Week, a regular feature of the weekly. The first Man of the Week is the representative Indian, a sharp comment on India's poverty. A new, independent and growing nation was rich material for biting satire, humour and even compassion. The kings were losing their kingdoms to democracy, institutions like the Planning Commission were making big plans, inflation was constantly rising, as it still does, and India seemed more globally active than, well before globalization. For 30 years, the cartoons in Shankar's Weekly would give its quirky take on the country. No one was spared, not even Jawaharlal Nehru, Shankar's close friend.
That was a period when criticism was welcome and was seen as an act of partnership in governance. It is only subsequently that as political power consolidated in a few hands, in a few parties, in a few dynasties, that they became very touchy about any sort of adverse comment. And in fact, the cartoon was seen as an adverse comment, whereas the cartoon is not an adverse comment. The cartoon is a sharp critique. It's a friend telling you, look, there is a precipice ahead, you're going to fall. As one of India's great cartoonists, Abu Abraham, was described in the British press, for example, as being a person who is able to put a pea under the princess's pillow.
The political cartoon was a British import, but Indian cartoonists welded it into India's own tradition of humour, parody and even social criticism. Mushirul Hassan's work on vernacular versions of the British Punch, the Awadh Punch and the Parsi Punch highlight the tradition of wit and humour in colonial India. Professor Partha Mitter examines the subversive role cartoons played in the struggle against the British. In Chennai, cultural historian Venkatachalapathy shows how the nationalist leader Subramanya Bharati pioneered both protest and political cartooning in Tamil journalism.
In the weekly newspaper called India, he pioneered this art form of cartoons. And when in 1908 he fled into exile to Pondicherry, one of the reasons was that when the British police was hounding him, one of the aspects of his journalism which drew the attention and the ire of the government were the political cartoons that he published.
When freedom came amidst the celebrations, the cartoonists remained alert and critical to the nation's fault lines. Not surprisingly, Shankar in that same opening editorial in the weekly wrote, "The situation has changed. It is entirely Indian now. Instead of the English Sahab, we have the Indian Sahab. Our weaknesses are national weaknesses. We must laugh or we must die. At any rate, we must laugh at our ludicrous smugness." This is one of Shankar's later cartoons, a visibly devastated Nehru after the China War, leaving in his wake a battle for succession. The bounded volumes of Shankar's Weekly act as quirky textbooks of Indian history. They were also a springboard for the best cartoonists of the time.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.